So, hey everyone, my name is Pulkit Tyagi. I'm based out of New Delhi, India. I'm working as a Gen AI engineer at Axelerant, and it's been almost 1.5 years I've been working here in Axelerant and solving AI related problems and other things as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Bassam. I've been working with Axelerant for over a decade now. I lead the engineering team here. We do like a lot of stuff. It has been Drupal and then now it has become a lot more than that. Yeah, excited to be here and then talk about this thing.
So, today what we are going to discuss it's primarily related to solving and automating the complete software development lifecycle. For quite a time now, all these things are happening manually and people are working on development day in and day out, right? So nowadays, when LLMs are here for us to leverage and speed up this task in terms of delivery, in terms of development, in terms of problem solving and everything. So why not? We thought of let's picking up this as a problem statement, use LLMs that we have already, leverage them, and basically solve the overall SDLC problem that we face on an everyday basis. Now, for example, let's say if someone has to pick up a task and that particular dev is new into the team, right? There's a lot of bandwidth that goes into onboarding itself. So this SDLC plugin kind of automates that, and there's a lot of noise when it comes to switching the context between multiple things that we are using. For example, if there is any feature that we want to implement, right? We have to go to Jira, we have to read out the complete Jira ticket, need to see the acceptance criteria and everything, come up with a spec related to that, write tests related to that, right? Since development should always be spec driven and test driven. So all of that is manual up until now, right? We thought of leveraging LLMs there and building up a plugin that can automate this entire workflow, not just from the point where we can read the Jira ticket till the end, where we can actually raise the PR, do an initial code review, and even merge the PR to the main production report. So that's the actual problem, or let's say that's the actual task that we took on to basically automate by leveraging the power of LLMs.
I think that covers pretty much everything. But yeah, I think like sort of this the overall problem that we are trying to solve here is not that like we want to have LLMs come in and replace the work or sort of stop. We don't really necessarily want to avoid going through the Jira tickets or like understand what is really there and just hand it over to the LLMs. The idea is to augment everything that we are doing currently. So this whole process has been where developers would come in and there would always be some level of gaps, right? So gaps in terms of how accurately are these or how consistently are these this information brought forward to everyone else who's there in the team, right? So say for example a developer is expected to work on something, they talk to their team, they talk to the customer and they come up with a solution. Now once you come up with a solution, there is a level of understanding that needs to be sort of formed and based on which you ideate a solution and then you implement it. A lot of time what we have seen is we lose a lot of this information because developer understands it and then codes it out, and in case someone has to come in and has to interpret it, has to modify it, has to reason about it, all of that information is gone, or like it's not there, right? Like they'll have to either piece it together based on the code or just make an assumption or just like redo it again. And this is where the whole plugin helps us solve this problem, right? So the problem it solves is that it will first go through the initial requirement on Jira. It will go through it, understand what is expected, then go on and implement a plan for it. Like, hey, these are the trade-off. This is what we are trying to solve. This is how I'll go about it. It lands that information in your Jira so that like the team can review it and it is there as a record. So that like tomorrow once you want to review it, it's always there. Then it goes on taking that plan based on your approval or whether there are certain iteration it does with the developer. Once those iterations happen, it will go on and implement it. It will not just implement it, it will also make sure there are tests written, as in like it has this whole validation cycle with it. So it will validate the whole flow, it will make sure everything is working as expected, and once it has met that specific criteria that it had planned initially, it will go on, it will push that code on GitHub, it will raise a pull request, it will put that on Jira so that there it is there for future reference, and then it will move the ticket forward to the next status or whatever corresponding status would be once the task is done. This not just only does your work, because that is still possible, everyone does it at this point. It's just improving your whole software delivery life cycle by making sure these decisions are recorded, it's there in your system, and tomorrow if whatever changes you need to make, those can be sort of looked at, people can come in and then sort of iterate on it. Tomorrow if you want to build on top of it, your LLM can refer to this previous ticket, what you have done or like what the plugin had done, and then build on top of it. So that is the whole premise of this plugin.
I'm going to give you an overall understanding what exactly is this before jumping deeper into the demo itself. This is an AI native automated SDLC plugin. And what exactly is the meaning of that? It kinds of automate the entire software delivery lifecycle, but it is not taking away the control from the developer. It is helping or augmenting the overall developer experience over here. So there are a lot of skills, rules, and patterns that have been encoded into this particular plugin. Some of the skills that you can see over the screen, for example, onboarding. As I suggested that if there is a new developer who is coming into the picture to work on the project, that particular developer does not have to spend too much time in going through the code base and everything and all. Uh, that particular developer can just run this particular onboarding skill, and it is going to do the overall job for it. It is going to set up everything that is required. For example, Playwright MCP, GitHub CLI, or let's say project conventions and everything. All of that would be set up. And once that is done, it is going to go ahead and ask you to basically pick up a Jira ticket and work on it. But let's say if there is something which is creating a problem during the setup or onboarding, right? It is going to suggest you the ways as well in which you can rectify that situation, so that once the onboarding is done, you can kick off the entire SDLC plugin cycle over here, right? So that's the overall idea of this plugin, and it's a Claude Code plugin. You can install this directly from the marketplace, and the first step would be just running this onboarding step. And then it can go ahead and ask you to work on the Jira ticket. Although developers can read out that Jira ticket themselves as well, but this gives a better context because ultimately you are going to work with Claude Code itself. So it makes sense that Claude Code has the context of what feature or what chore that you are working on. And once that is done, it is always going to hand over the control back to developer so that the developer can go through the spec that has been generated. If anything needs to be augmented or added to that, that thing can be done. And then again, the handover would be given back to Claude Code so that it can ingest all of the context that is required and start implementing the feature or the chore that is presented in the Jira ticket. So while working on Drupal projects, there is a lot of back and forth in terms of, let's say, scaffolding any module, right? Or let's say, while scaffolding any module, there's a lot of boilerplate code that goes into it. A lot of configs are there. So it helps in automating that as well. Right? So for example, there's a specific skill for that, which is config builder, right? That can generate Drupal config YAML files, and that is to with just plain English, right? There's a skill which is module scaffolder, which can scaffold the custom Drupal modules. It can give you the overall boilerplate code. You can obviously modify it and everything, right? It is going to write the test cases as well. It is going to validate everything, right? So yeah, that's what I would suggest that it is going to do in terms of Drupal development. It helps you in scaffolding any module that you can basically think of or that is there in the spec. And yeah, any boilerplate code can be written from this. Any boilerplate code can be generated. Any config file can be generated. Config cycles can be automated with this. So that's why I believe this plugin adds a lot of, you can say, value when it comes to Drupal development. And yeah, while we are demonstrating these things, we are going to obviously pick up a ticket and we are going to see how exactly these skills are being loaded into the context and how exactly it is, let's say, elevating the overall experience of Drupal development in itself. Okay, let's start with the demonstration of this plugin and how exactly it can help you in Drupal development in itself. So for this demo purpose, there is a ticket that I have created over Jira, the TDP74 ticket. And the description says that there's a custom block plugin that shows the 10 most used tags ordered by number of associated published articles, right? So it's basically a ticket out of a project which is a blogging website. In general, my suggestion would be that the ticket should not be a thin ticket. There should be acceptance criteria and everything over there. But let's say for demo purposes, we have taken this ticket up, right? It suggests what kind of behavior is expected and what tests should be done. And by the way, let me tell you, for this SDLC plugin, it is never going to raise a PR until the tests are successful, right? So it is going to keep on reiterating on the test part, or let's say if something is failing, it is going to pick that up, rectify that, and then again test it. So that's the beauty of kind of using an agentic workflow for that. So it is not going to ever raise a PR without testing anything, and that's what matters. I mean, when it comes to spec-driven development and test-driven development, right? So that's what this ticket is. And what we are going to do is we can just open up the cloud code. Let's say you have already onboarded. All you need to do is you need to just type work on Jira ticket and then give the ticket number, which is TDP 74. So if you do that and hit enter, Cloud Code is automatically going to load the skill, which is work on Jira ticket. Now, this work on Jira ticket, it's an agentic orchestrator. It is going to orchestrate the overall behavior of this SDLC plugin. And it is going to do a pre-flight as well, whether Atlassian MCP is configured, GitHub CLI is there or not. It is going to do all of that before actually reading out the ticket. And then it is going to go over to the ticket, read it, and it will start generating the spec. And for generating the spec itself, it is also going to use the spec writer skill. This one, it is going to get all of the context, all of the acceptance criteria, and everything from the Jira ticket itself, and it is going to formulate a spec around that. So let's wait for it. As you can see, it is clearly mentioned that ticket has been read, now generating the spec via spec writer. And there might be a possibility it stumbles upon something, right? But that's not an issue, because that's the beauty of agentic workflows. It is going to rectify itself. And yes, it has generated a list of tasks that it is going to perform, which is this one. It is going to read it, gather the context, generate the spec, and then it is going to wait for the approval of the developer. And once that is done, it is going to go ahead and post it over a Jira ticket as well as a comment. So let's wait for it. And yes, it has invoked the spec writer skill to actually write the spec for this particular ticket. And this is the spec that is coming out. Obviously, my suggestion would be reading the spec diligently, because it is the core of this development cycle. You can change few things here, and that's what makes the importance of developer relevant, right? It is not going to control the overall development cycle. It is going to hand over the control back to developer wherever it is required. For example, while approving the spec, while let's say merging the PR and everything. So it is giving you pretty much everything, right? What exactly it is going to do, what needs to be built, right? Drupal implementation plan is also there. The acceptance criteria is also there. What files it is going to create or let's modify it. Testing plan is also there. It is giving you a risk level assessment also. Some open-ended questions are also there. You can answer these questions or let's say add on to this particular spec as well based on your requirement. If you are good to go with this particular spec, right? All you need to do is you need to type go ahead or let's say approved or anything that you can think of, because ultimately it is working on NLP, that is natural language processing. So once you have approved it, it is going to go ahead and start by creating a branch from obviously your production environment. It is going to branch off from main, and then it is going to start implementing whatever is approved in this particular spec. Obviously, we need to wait for it. It is going to write everything, all the implementation plan and everything, and it is going to start implementing that thing as well. So yeah, so it spawned up a new agent or a sub agent and did the implementation part. Once that is done, it has moved on to the validate part, where it is actually going to validate whatever it has done, and then it is going to test it. And once that is done, it is only then going to raise the PR. So validate stage is also done. And right now you can see that currently it is writing the tests and basically testing the feature that has been implemented. And once that is done, it is then going to go ahead and raise the PR. So yeah, we need to wait again for it to see what exactly is going to happen. And at times it encounters few errors as well, but that's not an issue because that's the part of the process. It is going to figure out what went wrong, rewrite those tests, and then validate and test it again. So we approved the spec. Once that has been approved, this particular SDLC plugin was able to manage the overall cloud code session that is going on, and it is able to spawn up an agent, and that agent took upon the task of implementing that spec. Also, it has referenced the templates that are present inside the plugin in itself for, let's say, some kind of config or maybe some kind of UI and everything. Once that is done, it went ahead and digged deeper into the validation and testing side. And for that, it wrote the playwright tests where obviously it is going to encounter some errors, and it is automatically going to rectify those errors because it's an agentic process, and that's the fancy bit around that. It is going to rectify that, read the test, and once all of the tests are going to pass, it is going to give you a message that yes, all the 5 playwright tests have been are passing. And once that is done, it is going to create a PR. For that, it is going to again leverage uh, a PR creator skill that is already there, present inside the plugin. So it is going to use this PR creator skill to actually create the PR. Once that PR is created, it is going to show up in your project code base as well under PRs. So this is the PR that it raised. It is giving you a summary. It is giving you what exactly is changed, the acceptance criteria, whether it is being met or not, the testing plan and everything, what it has tested. Some manual tests are there, but that should be done by developers. And it is giving you a risk assessment and few notes as well. And you can clearly see that this has been generated by Cloud Code. And all the commits that you are going to see, it has basically through Cloud to expedite the process, to let's say speed up the process of code review. It is going to actually fire up a new skill, which is this PR reviewer skill. Once the PR has been have been raised, so it is going to fire up that skill, and it is going to do an initial review of the PR that has been raised, right? So if you go here, you can see within the same PR, there's a comment which is code review. It is going to give you a checklist what has been implemented against the acceptance criteria, security checklist, and everything. It is going to see or it is going to validate whether all the ACs are covered or not, right? Give you certain flags. If there is something that needs human review, it is going to give you that as well. It is going to also suggest what exactly it is missing. Now, if this is the case, you can again ask Cloud Code itself to work on this. Otherwise, you can take this up manually and implement them. Note over here that this PR is able to merge with the main. That's how this SDLC plugin automates, let's say, 70 to 80% of the software development lifecycle or software delivery lifecycle. But it is not going to do it entirely using its own methodologies. It is going to hand over the control back to the developer because that is the topmost priority for it. Because nothing should go into the production which is not vetted by an actual developer, right? It is just going to help in elevating the overall development experience. And the next step, which is in line, is obviously Bott that can help in managing the overall product or overall project in itself. Yeah, so that's how SDLC plugin and Bott basically helps in expediting a lot of things. So as we have seen that we are able to implement a new feature to the blogging website or the blogging platform that we were building using Drupal, right? The SDLC plugin is able to manage all of that on its own by giving up control over to the developer wherever it is required. And there are a lot of use cases for this. This can be used across any kind of Drupal development, not just this. And that's why we have kept in mind that it needs a lot of inputs as well, and that's why we have open source this particular plugin. So you can play around with this, use this as much as you can. You can even raise PRs if you think that there is something that needs to be added. And obviously, it is going to help in the overall development of this particular plugin as well.
Okay, just to set some premise with regards to what Bot is. So again, like we have seen the Drupal SDLC plugin, it helps the delivery cycle, but specifically within the delivery cycle, it helps the engineers. Right? So engineers who have received this context on Jira tickets from their team, from the stakeholders, like in terms of how to what to build, how to build it, what is the end goal, what is ROI on what they are building, right? So that they can understand the context and build it. But that is where the scope of the plugin starts and ends. But our engagements, whatever we work on, whether it's a product or whether it's a service that we are providing to our customers in terms of building applications, mobile applications, web applications, digital experiences, whatever it is, the idea here is that basically there's a lot of understanding that is developed over time. There's a lot of decision making that happens. We end up changing our decisions over time, and then we also sort of have a lot of implications that come in with regards to tools we use, problems we solve, or how we go about things. These there's no common call that happens across the team. People are available at times they are not. At times these information this information flows through Slack, through Granola Notes, or on your Zoom. At times, it's in Google Docs or Confluence Docs. So there's like a there's a sprawl of information across these engagements, and this is where Bot comes in. With Bot, what we do is basically like as soon as your project start, maybe it's in the very early stages, and there's no GitHub repo, there's no Jira project and all. But most of the organizations work with a tool like Slack, right? So as soon as your engagement starts, and the way you operate is that you add or connect your Bot project with your Slack account, and it starts from that point onwards. It looks at your Slack channel continuously, and it extracts the whole conversation from your Slack channel, whatever has happened. So even if the conversation history goes back to last year or a couple of years or whatever it is, or if it's as recent as today, right? So it will go through all the messages, it will go through all the links within those messages, right? So like whether there are call notes, whether there are references, whatever it is there, it will go through all of it, it will capture it, it will store it in our database. So we have a vector database that sort of backs Bot, and we capture all this information, we summarize it, we embed it in our system, so that there is a knowledge base which we can keep referring to, which we can ask questions against, but more importantly, it can give us insight proactively. So there are agents which pull this information, which query this information proactively at a regular basis, and then give us signals. Like it could be signals for developers, it could be signal for the whole team, it could be signals for project managers, or whatever you want to configure on top of that. There are various use cases, but ultimately you have a single source of all your context in one place that we capture, and then based on which we can remediate, we can ideate in terms of solutions, or we can solve immediate problems that we have. So I'll share my screen and I'll quickly go through some of the aspects. So here's the landing page, but I'll jump onto a project page. So we'll take Ironman. Like we have multiple projects under Ironman, and then there are multiple code bases corresponding to those. But right off the bat, what you'll see is project knowledge. This will show us insights about the project. So this is updated as recently as 1 hour ago based on whatever signal that it has captured from our context layer. It will tell us what is the current status of the project, what's the team focus, active blockers, recent discussions, or what is the tech debt, what are the risks the team needs to account for. So it will capture like whatever it comes across, and it comes across context through various sources which we'll look at, and based on that it will keep revising and keep giving us insights. We can also talk to this, so we can have a chat with this. So if I open the chat tab, let me try the audio. This will connect, and then I can ask questions. So what is the Drupal version that we are currently running, and what's the theme name that is currently set up in this project? So this is basically, I got the audio over the my headphones. So I'll move on back to the project. Here is our context layer for this project. You'd see we have all the Slack threads over time that have accumulated, and then within this we'll also have all the references that we would have come across, right? So this will go into not just your Slack threads, but also your Slack message, then all the GitHub PRs that have been referenced over time, Google Docs, Confluence Doc. This would have Granola meeting notes and as well. We capture all of that, and then according to this information, we are able to ask questions. We are able to get more information, and then based on which we can operate on. Now, the other bits that of information that Bot surfaces up is basically analytics. So I can look at what is happening within this project. I can choose a time span and then see we can get certain DORA metrics, certain metrics with regards to AI adoption, and what is the overall outcomes of that. I can look at, say, how many PRs are being raised which are AI assisted. Lately there has been like a significant trend of that. We can look at what is the journey of tickets, of pull requests, and based on that conclude certain information. This is another aspect where Bot will bring up information with regards to how the team is doing, what are the core signals, and then on top of which it can suggest either improvements or remediations that the team can do. You can also track the token usage and figure out how and where the tokens are being used. Finally, now looking at the dev session. So with dev session, rather than sort of pulling in the code base locally and all, you can write from Bot itself. You get to choose one of the code bases associated with the project. So let me choose this one. I'll click start, and what will happen is basically we'll see a terminal on the left and an agent that can work against that code base on the right side. Instead of pulling in the code base on your local and then working through that and going through all those hurdles, I can just have this whole setup running on web directly, and then I can just operate against it. So here I have the whole code base on the left side, and in a moment I'll see the agent on the right side. Right, I can just prompt against it, and this will give me all the answers. Right? Here's a GLM5 agent that's running off of Amazon Bedrock, and I'm able to prompt it. I can tell it to do certain actions, and then eventually ask it to raise a PR, and then have bot review that PR. All right. So besides having all the insights and being able to work on the code base right from bot on a project page, what we can also do is I can go to configuration, because bot has all the integrations and all the access, and it knows about the code base. It knows about the decisions. I can also enable auto triage for Sentry and also auto review for GitHub PRs. What this looks like is basically something along the lines of this. We can have people ping bot on Slack asking it to review a PR, and then it will review it, and if it looks good it will approve it. You can ask it to re-review it again at times, and if you enable this configuration, bot will also start auto reviewing it. So you don't need to tell it, as soon as a PR is raised, it will auto review it, and then in case it finds improvements, it will tell you, and then you can also ask it to do a follow-up commit on top of it. So there's no action particularly to be taken to tell bot to review a code base, to review a PR. It will automatically come into the picture. And then with regards to Sentry, similarly, in case there is a Sentry incident, you can tell bot to review it. It will figure out the problem. It will go through the Sentry issue, and then it will raise a pull request to fix it. In this case, it's manually triggered, but in case you enable the automated triage feature, it will automatically do it. So you don't need to manually do any of this. So bot will help you with this context layer that you have in place. This gives you a lot of information. It gives you a lot of capabilities in terms of taking all this information and proactively addressing a lot of things. So whether it's from an engineering perspective to either upgrade, either remediate, or fix any ongoing challenges, bot can surface that information based on what you're currently running and then what is out there. You can have a periodic job because it's there in its context that what we are running, the whole code base is embedded within the within bot itself, so it knows what you're running, and then it can figure out on a certain schedule whether it's weekly, monthly, or whatever you want to configure, and it can review those things, and then not just figure out what's the latest version, but also patch it, validate it, and then get the system up and running. Beyond this, it can also give you signals in terms of if there are technical debt within the application, which might not even surface directly, but might have been discovered through certain conversations on Slack, on meeting notes, where it can understand that information and then automatically patch those things, fix those things, and then you don't necessarily need to be a human in the loop to trigger those things or create tickets for it. It can, based on all that context, solve all those problems. And more broadly, I think, like, because this is connected not just from an engineering perspective, but like there are other team members who are discussing various other aspects in terms of client sentiments, their needs, and all. It can take those granular notes or whatever is registered over tickets, over documents, try to understand that, and then over time try to build those POCs, try to identify and flag those signals where prioritization needs to happen. So say, for example, in case the team is planning or the developers are planning work for themselves, they can ask these questions, or the system can surface that information that this is more important, this is what you should prioritize, because this is what the customer is primarily aiming for. So this is where the context layer would come into the picture and solve the problems.
I would like to add one thing particularly, which is, see, SDLC plugin helps developers to elevate the overall experience of development. And I would say what is the next step? It is going to help developers to understand the overall project, what is required, where they need to focus on right now, what needs to be done within the client delivery cycle and everything. So it is going to elevate the experience of developers as well as the program managers and everyone, right? So the SDLC plugin is kind of step one. The bot is the next step in the future. So that's what I would like to add here.
So at Accelerant, we have been riding this wave of AI LLMs since last year, and at this point, like, we are really big on this. We believe that with AI, our engineers are empowered. We look at AI to augment and improve our results, and this is where building all these tools comes in. We are using all of these platforms, these tools, to help us expedite the results, the quality of our deliverables, and this is what we sort of at this point are building on top of. with more LLMs, with more AI based solutions, I think while the work gets easier, there's still a human relation that needs to be built. Customers need to be understood. So rather than just outsourcing all of this work to LLMs and AI, what we are doing is we're building these tools to surface as much context, as much relevant information, so that humans can do their best kind of work that is possible for them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned for more updates from us.